From awaytogarden.com and robinhoodradio.com, this is A Way to Garden with Margaret Roach, your weekly invitation to dig in and grow.
Like any gardener looking ahead to another growing season, I'm deep into the seed catalogs, dreaming of things to come. But many seeds also offer us a window to look back in time by telling us their stories, which are also the stories of the people who grew them before us and the places those people and seeds have journeyed from. I have a special affection for catalogs that celebrate seeds with such histories to share. Ujamaa Seeds, founded in 2021, is one such place, and one of its founders is here to talk about seeds as vessels of cultural heritage, as they refer to them. More in a moment, but first these messages.
Programming and underwriting support from High Mowing Organic Seeds, now offering 100% organic vegetable, flower, and herb seeds for that farm and garden. Available at highmowingseeds.com.
Underwriting support from Color Blends, supplying top-quality, spring-blooming Dutch flower bulbs to landscape professionals and ambitious home gardeners. More information on the web, colorblends.com.
My guest today is Bonnetta Adeeb, a retired educator who's president of Steam Onward, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to increasing the number of minority and underserved youth pursuing higher education in STEM-related fields. In 2020, she founded the Ujamaa Cooperative Farming Alliance, a collective of BIPOC growers, farmers, and gardeners who cultivate and distribute heirloom seeds and grow culturally meaningful crops. And in 2021, the Ujamaa Seeds online catalog that's our subject today was born. Welcome, Bonnetta. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
It's good to talk to you again, and congratulations on launching the second seed catalog for Ujamaa. Yay, with twice as many varieties, it seems like, as last year.
Yes, well, our goal is to grow more growers, and our growers were more successful, and more things came in. And then as we look at the broader mission, our work with youth and our regenerative work, it's very important that we have increased perennials, things that are better, good for the planet, and actually are very good for new growers to have things that don't have to be planted that will volunteer to go back on their own.
Right,
right. That's how we came to increase the catalog, much more than we thought we would.
Yeah, so you add a lot of perennials and a lot of other great things. And so just to start sort of as background, I wanted to tell us what Ujamaa means, for example, the name means. Why did you choose it?
So one of the things that many African Americans in this country have struggled with is figuring out our heritage. Many people have in the past seen themselves as orphans without a history, without culture, and all of that. And so about 50 years ago, a gentleman decided to get together with other scholars and put together a cultural event called Kwanzaa, and to have 7 principles. And these 7 principles would allow African American communities outside of the continent to reclaim and rebuild a community structure. And so Ujamaa is one of the 7 principles that has to do with cooperative economics and people pulling together, working together around a common cause. It's a pretty important concept for people who need help and can get help from within their communities, can build from within, and bring in friends that want to help build something positive. And so therefore we came up with that name to talk about the collaborative nature of the work that we have to do in order to reclaim a lost heritage.
And it's not a conventional commercial catalog, but I believe the proceeds support the work you're doing that I was beginning to describe in the introduction, the work to support the Cooperative Farming Alliance, to grow more growers, as you say, and so forth. Is that what the proceeds are for? Yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting that my family, along with many other families, fled the South. My family fled the South by night because of Jim Crow and repressive, activities
Yes.
in the South. But not everything, we took some things with us. But one of the things that we really did not seem to take as a people was the knowledge of seed and seed varieties. So whereas, and it seemed to get lost along the wayside, even families that have been farming for hundreds of years still seem to have lost the connection to those heritage varieties. So, when you really think about it, so it was like, well, we grow turnip greens, or we grow mustard greens, or collard. It wasn't the fastidious nature of the details of holding on to this one variety. So that's the work that we have to do in order to reclaim that knowledge of seed saving, of seed stewardship, and then gathering those seeds and make sure that they're saved and protected for future generations. That's going to take some time and some work.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when you get seeds from Ujamaa Seeds, you're helping to support our work in reclaiming that heritage and providing long-term systems for maintaining those traditions.
Yeah. As I said in the introduction, what draws me to seeds often, besides the deliciousness or beauty of a particular variety that I can grow, is the story. I love reading the descriptions in my favorite catalogs and some tied to a particular culture, a particular time, a particular family even. Do you have a family seed story? Was there a seed that, you know, meant something to you or that you know about from your family?
Yes. So when we started doing this work, we started interviewing grandmothers, the elders in the
Oh,
community. COVID had taken so many elders, so we felt a sense of urgency to find out what was in their grandmother's gardens. And so we identified, certain things in various cultural communities, Asian, Native American, that were central to those communities. In my case, there was a repetition of things that came up. There were always collard greens, there was always okra, certain things just persisted in gardens. And my family has been farming in South Carolina actually since 1710. We've traced back
wow.
folks, and we heard these stories about this how successful farmers were able to protect their families and live a better quality life, and the way they did this was by having certain signature crops that were profitable. In the case of my family, I heard about some watermelon that was grown that was so profitable that and I think there were also other things like sweet potatoes, but this particular watermelon was one that they made so much money on that the girls were able to stay home. Now, you probably know that throughout the South that African American girls had to go out of the home to work as maids. And
Yes.
so if a family could be successful in growing a crop that was able to have the family be able to keep those girls at home, they could have work for home. My aunts and my cousins, all of them had their own bakery. They baked things, but they didn't have to leave home to work, and that
Hmm.
provided a safe haven for girls. Life
Yes.
was dangerous, and still is dangerous for women who are out and about. So
Yes.
from these stories, I never heard about a particular variety, but I had a wonderful meeting with some growers, some wonderful people from Seed Savers, and they said, well, Bonnetta, we have a rematriation project going with Native Americans. We can bring that project to Ujamaa and help growers find the things that are culturally meaningful for their families. And so we set about this journey. We had about 26 growers initially involved. And I had to start with my own story. So it's like, well, what was important in my family? So I started by interviewing the elders, the oldest members. I have a cousin that's 104 and several very high up in their 90s. And it turned out that I have some cousins that are still on the land in Winsboro, South Carolina, that my family was able to buy after slavery. And so I'm in conversations, with these elderly farmers, and I'm saying, well, what was that watermelon that you grew? And they were like, how am I supposed to remember what I
Oh,
that was the story I got. So I've
yeah.
learned some tricks from doing these interviews with elders by asking them to go back into their memories about the kitchen life and family life. What did it smell like? What did things, what was going on,
Oh,
and so what I found is that by talking about smells and taste and helping them to envision those childhood memories, I can coax memories. And so from this conversation with my elderly cousin Leon, I asked him what shape was it? What color was the flesh? Was it large? Was it round? Was it, and from this, it just popped in this memory. He said it was the Stone Mountain watermelon. That's what I grew. And then he began to tell me the story of this watermelon and why it was so important to the family, that the success of this melon allowed them to send their boys and the children to college. And it
wow.
was just another example of the importance of being an experienced and successful farmer, and how you could raise the status of yourself and your family by sending those children to college to get that education.
Huh.
So that was really, really exciting.
That's an interesting
So
way. It's like an alternate version of genealogical research is do you know what I
yes,
mean?
yes.
It's really fascinating. And that was, and you used the senses. You asked for sensory memories to get at the answer. That's brilliant. I want to talk about some of so Stone Mountain watermelon. That's a big watermelon. That's a big round watermelon, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
big, it's round, and it's a picnic, means it can feed multiple people. So the more you learn about watermelon, the more you learn about some of the mythology, some of the racism
Yes.
and stereotypes that arose around Black people eating watermelon, some of the vilification of Black
Yes.
folks growing and eating watermelon. So it's a bittersweet story. It's sweet, and we all know the reason why it is such a
We know the
delicious
sweet
thing.
part. Yes.
But
Yes.
but
Yes.
so I have cousins that collect Black memorabilia, and so many of those pieces negatively depict Black people eating watermelon. As you go further, and as we research for our current catalog, we found out, those things are African varieties. They come from Africa, and just like African peas and okra, and they were used for hydration. They had a very important role.
Absolutely.
Initially, they came, and
Absolutely.
the first ones were yellow, and as watermelons grew, so the story of watermelon is complex, and is it's deep.
Yeah, and
And
you have some great ones in the catalog. You in the
yes, and
Ujamaa.
so
Yeah, yeah,
right, so that's why those seeds are kind of rare. We didn't have a lot of them, but we felt that this story, as we go trace our roots backward, literally, and
yes,
as we look toward the past, we find there's tremendous implications for future, because
yes.
with a drought, with the all the problems related to weather, food that provides hydration is going to be super important in the
Very
future.
important. Very important.
And
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
that's what's so exciting about the work, Margaret,
Yeah,
because the past informs the future, and the technologies to strengthen knowledge of how to grow these things and produce them, and not just that, but also breed varieties that are transportable.
and I want
That like
yeah.
that watermelon one that has
Right,
the handle
right.
on it, the
Yeah,
art combi
yeah.
watermelon. Also, that one that was protected and held by the Hopi, the yellow early yellow moonbeam. Those stories. I have my whole family crying over these stories. I mean, we
Yeah,
this
well,
is
and that's like I said,
this is
that's what
touching.
gets me when I go into a seed catalog. Those are the ones that resonate with me. And I'm a greens lover, so I want to talk about some of the other things in the catalog. And I love to eat greens, and because of Southern Exposure Seed Exchange decades ago, their catalog, I bought my first collard green. I'm a northern person, but I bought my first collard green seeds a million years ago and grew them and came to love them long before the kale thing happened, or whatever. And so there, but I think what gardeners, one little pocket of stuff I notice in the current Ujamaa catalog that maybe some gardeners have overlooked are some of the traditional, nutritious and delicious and often beautiful plant sources of greens that you offer seed from, like things in the amaranth family that are good, that the leaves can be eaten, like callaloo, which is a green amaranth, or the Lagos spinach, which is a celosia. We know it as a flower, an annual flower, but the leaves. And I mean, that's just what gets me, is like I read about these things and I know the plant, but I don't think of it as a edible, and yet it's been an edible traditionally through all these cultures. That just blows me away. I love that.
So Margaret, I think that this is the story of greens, and is so important. I think that greens are completely tied to the identity of Ujamaa, because the story of those collards is a story of one of the reasons why Africans ended up in this country in the first place is because of their knowledge of farming, their
Yes.
skills in growing in all kinds of climates and conditions. And so when we hear the stories of how greens were braided, how peas were braided into the hair and putting in people's garments, amulets around their neck. So we got okra and peas came across also on slave ships with African people because they needed food that they could recognize. And for the life of me, as I learned more about collard, and we began this heirloom collard project, it was like, well, why didn't collard come with the why didn't greens come with the Africans? I think you mentioned it's the size of the seed. Amaranth seeds are so fine. They're like sand, and they were difficult to transport. And so because African people were not able to get their traditional seeds, they looked at wild greens, they looked at available greens, and collards that are like a throw off of kale and cabbage were available, and they bred them to be used in the same way that traditional greens are used: collard, mustard, and turnip, and then some wild greens like cress and dandelion, and other things, shepherd's purse, purcell are used. So what I've come to believe, and I'm on this journey, if you can help me, is finding out more about why the traditional African greens didn't make it. So as I am presenting conferences, I'm a vagabond traveling from conference to conference. So many, particularly the experienced Southern Black growers, want to know, well, what are the African greens? If it's not turnip, mustard, and collard, then what were the greens that people sought to replicate as they began to look for varieties and develop varieties in their enslaved farms and on their Sunday farms? People were not allowed to grow every day of the week, just after dark at night, and then on Sundays. So I think that being able to put a package of celosia or molakaya or amaranth or nightshade greens from Kenya, or like you said, the soko yokoto, the Lego spinach. To hand that to somebody, and it's such an emotional and loving thing to do. What a gift to give somebody something they thought that was lost to them.
And
it's a joy.
And I just want to encourage people, regardless of where they're gardening, to give some of these different greens a try, because I know for me, I didn't know anything about collards 30 or 35 years ago, and there I was growing them, and they're amazing and productive and cold tolerant. Toward the end of the season, they stand in the, even in my northern area, they don't do as well over the whole winter like they would in a fairer climate, but you know what I mean? You learn so much, and the deliciousness and the different tastes within greens, quote unquote. So I don't want to run out of time, so I want to make sure that we have a minute to talk about. And by the way, you mentioned the Heirloom Collard project, and I'm going to I'll give a link to that with the transcript too, so people can learn more about that. But we can't not talk briefly about okra, and I'm especially interested in this ultra cross okra that you have. You have some interesting okras in the catalog at Ujamaa right now, but I wanted to ask you about that as well.
So, ultracross is a phrase that was established by, it's like extra. There's a whole
Extra,
lot
right?
of
Right.
different varieties of 85 varieties in that mix. We have an ultracross collard also that has started out with 21 varieties. And so, in an effort to teach people how to grow, how to observe for the beautiful things you mentioned, the color, the cold tolerance, the taste it's sweet, is a little bit bitter. A lot of people love bitters. Cabbage is a bitter taste,
Yeah.
for tenderness, for height, for size. And in my case, I really love the collard, the beautiful range of collard that you could show. But what you get is, I meant color that you get, but what you get with the okra is this beautiful array of sizes and flowers
Yeah.
and tenderness, and the color ranges are amazing. So we're working with Chris Smith from Ujamaa Seeds to use this as the first African crop that we introduce to people in their journey to learn how to seed breed again. And it's so beautiful because every plant is going to be different. In order for you to see the full array, you probably need 500 plants. You could do it with 100, or you can just have a few plants in your yard to begin to make these observations and understand that for most of these African varieties, the leaves are the primary crop. So,
Yes.
we have varieties of okra. Heard of the motherland okra, and there's a whole slew of African varieties where the leaf is edible as the pod. Also, the size and the shape of the pods are so interesting, and the colors. So most people, when they think of okra, they think of one variety. I think something that looks like a Clemson spineless. But
Yes,
when I show them, there's
exactly.
white, there's pink, there's striped, there's just all this beautiful color, purples and pinks and pink and green stripes. I mean, it's there. So I equate the grower, a full grower of the ultra crosses, as resembling the people of the African diaspora. Everything comes from Africa. The tallest people, the shortest people, the thinnest people, the whitest people. It's all, everything. People get surprised when they see people with blue eyes and brown eyes and gray eyes, So the ultra cross okra represents, it's a metaphor for African American people and how broad we are, especially
I
as we
love it.
travel around the world and we mix and join with other societies, and you have this full range, of the Chinese African American communities in Jamaica, or we have Appalachia, that's a mixture of slaves and indentured servantry, and the beautiful color and society and music that comes out of bluegrass, the Piedmont blues, and the wonderful songs and cultural traditions that come out of that. So as we grow, as we move into Native American communities, and we talk about the three sisters, now we're talking about what we call the African cousins that are symbiotic as the three sisters are, and we let people know that, you know, a lot of things were given to us by the Native Americans. I mean, everybody claims a pepper, but those peppers all came from the Americas.
Yes, they
The
did.
tomatoes, the San Marzano tomato, but that was cultivated by Aztecs in the Americas. And so potatoes, the Irish
Yes.
potato that was cultivated from wild varieties in the mountains. of South America. So as we begin to examine the great variety of foods, I ask everyone, no matter where they're from, to look to Granny. Ask Granny, what should I be growing in my garden? What was traditional? I was in a restaurant yesterday with that was from the Republic of Georgia. We did the same thing. What were the things that you ate that define your culture and who you are? And wouldn't you like to see that continue to be available for future generations?
Yes.
Biodiversity, I believe, is the secret to where we're going in the future. If we can bring back, do more than just those 20 vegetables we're currently eating, expand that, and help to develop varieties that can save us and save the planet from certain doom from climate change. We can play a better role and be a better steward and be better children to Mother Earth. More respectful.
Well said, Bonnetta. Well said. Well, we've run out of time, but I'm so glad to talk to you, and I will be buying my greens, looking through some of those greens in the Ujamaa Seeds catalog, and thank you so much for making time today. I know it's a busy time with all the conferences and everything, but I hope I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much for giving us this opportunity to share our dreams with the world, Margaret. We appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Programming and underwriting support from High Mowing Organic Seeds, now offering 100% organic vegetable, flower, and herb seeds for that farm and garden. Available at highmowingseeds.com.
Underwriting support from Color Blends, supplying top-quality, spring-blooming Dutch flower bulbs to landscape professionals and ambitious home gardeners. More information on the web, colorblends.com.
Now, don't miss an episode. You can subscribe free to the podcast version of the show on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can find me anytime at awaytogarden.com and on Facebook and on Instagram as @awaytogarden. And happy gardening and seed shopping meantime.
A Way to Garden with Margaret Roach is a joint production of awaytogarden.com and the smallest NPR station in the nation, Robin Hood Radio.